us are standing side by side saying that the samplers currently installed are insufficient.
Yes.
And Chris is the lead guy on that.
Okay, I have a question for you though. You say that the PGV is developing a report of some
Yes,
sort
to
that
the
they're gonna
Department
send to
of
the
Health.
Department of Health. Are we gonna get a copy of that?
Yes, I've been promised a copy. I've been given no preliminary information.
Soon, I hope, yeah.
He said 2
Not
days.
next year.
He said hopefully by Thursday.
And before the meeting's over, we're gonna be developing an action, and we haven't decided if we're going to the Department of Health yet, or if we're going to PGV. That's one of the things we're gonna discuss later, is, how can we apply pressure now to get this stuff moving along.
Yeah, we've had fiddle farting around too long with the Department of Health. Something has to happen. And now is a very good time to put the pressure on, because
We're gonna come up with something.
Clarifying question. You have no monitors.
Right now,
0 monitors monitoring
samplers
hydrogen
either.
sulfide anywhere on this island. Clarifying.
I don't know
They
about
have
everywhere
handheld, no, they
anywhere.
have handheld, hazmat has handheld, civil defense has deployable, but there's nothing deployed or accessible.
And there are all kinds of monitors at PGV.
Right.
They
That
don't
are
give up.
internal, that they don't give
Well,
us the
no,
results on.
they are required by procedure to monitor in the community and report to the civil defense.
Okay, I attended a special meeting of the standardization committee at the county where they standardized the purchase of Jerome hydrogen sulfide monitors.
Right.
Did they never purchase any?
No, they've been purchased, but we haven't been trained
We
yet,
gotta
so
be
they have.
trained, and the guy.
So they're sitting on a shelf?
Well, but the guy was coming out to train us like 3 weeks ago, and he got stuck in Denver, a plane broke down, and he couldn't make it, so I had to reschedule the training, which is coming up pretty soon.
The monitors are available, the community volunteers that will have access to those monitors is available, the training has not occurred.
Okay.
So we don't have them available to us right now.
And is that a sampler, or is that?
It's a
Well, it's a
there's a
sample.
sample. Please understand. Let me
There's
say
not-
something about sampling and monitoring. Okay, you monitor with your eyes, okay, and with your ears. You sample by biting something. A piece of cake, you sample. You have to be at whatever you're sampling has to be in physical contact with you in order to sample. These Jeromes are samplers. The gas has to be at the Jerome in order for the Jerome to register the gas.
And it moves around.
It is a sample.
Yeah, disperses.
And it's a very important distinction, between sampling and monitoring. Yes, ma'am.
Does the EPA have a standard procedure for monitoring outgassing from geothermal anywhere?
They have regulations, yes, and the regulations have, it's a big complicated thing, and you're supposed to have.
I don't need the list, but they have.
Yes.
You don't have to reinvent the wheel.
No, we don't have to reinvent.
But it's
the wheel.
not happening here.
We
though.
have to read the law to the people who are not applying the law and make sure they follow.
What happens is EPA is responsible to the federal government for enforcement of the Clean Air Act of 1977. Is that the right year? Anyhow, it's an old act that says you have to keep the air clean. EPA has delegated the authority to regulate that to the State Department of Health. The discussion between the community, civil defense, the State Department of Health, and the EPA is we're contending that the State Department of Health is not competent in, it doesn't have the wherewithal, or competence. Our exact words is they don't have the wherewithal or competence to enforce the Clean Air Act. So we're currently in discussions with the EPA about that on a non-legal, at an administrative level.
Oh, very hoopy.
Yeah, which is, yeah. Well, it's important that it's administrative because after the administrative level is done, then you can start to consider legal things. But hopefully we'd never get there. Hopefully the EPA will say we agree with the community and the Department of Health has to get serious.
But this current outgassing during a disaster, in essence, would be at some point possibly legal recourse for demanding that the EPA act on this in a more.
There are many possibilities presented by this event,
Thanks.
If I may,
of which
I'm a little confused as to, we knew that a hurricane was coming and bearing down on the island.
Right.
We knew it was basically going to be hitting somewhere in lower Puna. Where it would be landfall somewhere in Puna. Why was PGV ramped up to full capacity when
don't know.
the chances of trees breaking power lines?
You missed the letter.
Yeah, you missed the letter, it's all in that letter.
Oh, okay.
Tom, there's another question here and another question.
And we've got one over here with Michael, he's been waiting too.
Thank you.
So just on that same point, so the EPA can say to geothermal, shut it down now.
yes.
That's who we're ultimately trying to petition. The state's
Well,
standing in the way.
I'm not going to go so far. I would be pleased if that's what they decided to do. But what we're saying right now is the State Department of Health is incompetent, and the EPA might say, we're taking over regulation of the Clean Air Act from the State Department of Health, or the EPA might say, shut it down, or the EPA might say, State Department of Health, you have 30 days to get a new plan to us. Or they might say, community, we don't believe you,
Right.
and we want to stick with the State Department.
But we are gonna-
but those discussions are underway.
And we are gonna, Puna Pono Alliance is gonna ask that the plant be shut down until such time as a proper monitoring system is in place and an emergency response plan. So we are gonna ask.
Emergency shutdown.
We think they should shut the plant down until they actually get an emergency response plan that works and a monitoring system that works.
Yeah.
And that's what we're gonna ask
At
for.
their budget.
We can't, I mean, EPA, it's gonna be a back and forth. We don't know what's gonna happen.
So Michael has a question, I'm sorry, Michael has a
Well,
question.
we were in the middle of doing testimony and we got into discussion. I'm eager to give my testimony.
You go ahead. What's your last name?
Michael Hill, and I documented most of what happened to me on my Facebook with all my friends, and I didn't hear about any of the symptoms or anything from anybody else. About 7:30 or so.
Where's your house, Michael?
We're a couple blocks from the bottom of Leilani, within the 1 mile zone. In a valley, I'd say. Kupu Street. And about 7:30 or thereabouts, we heard the jet engine go off. At first confused, thinking it was the hurricane maybe making some crazy noise, but then saw it was only directional one place, the power plant. Went outside, looked, saw, heard, and then we smelled. We both got scratchy throats. A headache developed very quickly. Somewhere around 7:38, I called 911 to report the noise at the plant. They said abruptly, yes, we know about the Puna Geothermal plant. Bye, click. Nothing more I could say to them. They hung up on me. And I mean, I was trying to be understanding because it's the middle of, the storm or whatever. So I let it be. I guess they'll let us know something, right? So at that time we still had some connection. We're watching Facebook and such, and other people telling that there's a gas leak already on Facebook, not from the mayor. And then I called 911 again. Well, I called Puna Geothermal numbers, the ones that I had, what I thought was the emergency line, and it just went to phone mail. So I hung up and then called another number. Nothing. That was between 7:30 and 8. Somewhere around after 8, I called 911 again to ask directly, because of the smell and the feelings we were having, if we should evacuate directly. And they asked somebody else, and they said, no, at this time, we're not saying to evacuate. Soon after that, I saw a Facebook message that somebody had linked from somebody else, from the mayor, saying that if you're feeling effects, that you should evacuate. So we started getting our people together in the house, 4 of us at the time, the dog and the cat, piled into the car, and tried to drive out of Leilani. where we found all the roads were blocked, including blocking the fire department in Leilani, at least 2 trucks. And they said, you can try and go this way or that way, so I tried to go this way, and the storm is starting to bear down. No luck. We drive by the fire department again, you know, and I had explained to them that we're trying to evacuate due to this smell, and they said to evacuate if we're feeling effects, we're feeling effects. They said, right now you're not going to be able to get out. Best thing to do is go back to your house, close the doors, stay inside, and windows. Right now, he also said something after like being on the radio or something, that it's testing 1 part per million, and it's dangerous at 2 part per million. I don't know where he got that, but it seemed like it was one of the fire department that was in Leilani at the
Well,
around 8.
1 part per million is 1,000 parts per billion.
Well,
And the violation is 25 parts per billion.
I'm repeating what he said.
No, I just telling you, I believe it, and I think it was at least 1 part per billion. And the actual evacuation level is 1 part per million. That triggers an evacuation. That's what.
Well, that's what he said to me on the street at the corner of Leilani and whatever, where the tree was down. That it was 1 part per million, and it's not dangerous until it's 2 parts per billion. Or million. Billion, he said, million.
And he had a sampler. I just want to say, because 10 feet that way could have been 15.
Well, I don't know if he got it from because
yeah.
it seemed like he might have got it from a radio, but I
Still,
didn't know what was
wherever
going on.
they took that sample from, 10 feet here or 10 feet there, could easily have been 10 times higher.
Now, at the time, I'm panicking, a little panicky. I'm also feeling groggy and clouded in the head. So I head back home, and you know, I'm telling everybody, look, you just got to stay inside. There's nothing we can do. So we all go back inside. We make up a bed in the closet, walk-in closet. I'm not even finished. I'm like not even finished making the bed, and I'm out.
Passed out?
Out.
That's the second person that passed out.
I did too.
I was out for 12 hours, almost 12 hours.
Oh my goodness. Boy,
She
I
tried to
tell
wake
you.
me up with a light and shaking me. The middle of the storm is going on. I like to watch storms. I'm a light sleeper when it's stormy out. I usually sleep 6 hours a night.
Believe us now?
I'm pissed. I'm scared and I'm pissed. I went to, woke up the next day, It took me about half an hour, 45 minutes to get ungroggy. I was still groggy most of the day. Basically, that day we couldn't get out.
So we gotta get a doctor. We need
So
a
how many
doctor.
hours you were out straight?
I'm gonna go make
Straight
some.
out.
11 hours.
12.
Over 11 hours.
Are you a doctor?
I went to the doctor. I went to the urgent care on Saturday. Let me finish the timeline of the story. So that day, you know, trying to get clear-headed, scratchy throat, headache through the day, going on and off. Late into the night, Leilani is when Leilani opened up so that you could actually go out of Leilani and have access to internet and phone and such. So we actually got out that, you know, somewhere in that day to post some other things online and such. The next day, I think it was, right, where I got the tingly feeling. I think it was the next day where I felt tingling in my arms, here and here. Not quite numbness, but just like enough that it never felt it before. So I decided to go to the urgent care. I went to the urgent care, and he said there's nothing that they can do, nothing to test for, nothing that he can do there, that you need to go to the emergency room. So I went to the emergency room where they ran all the tests and basically gave me oxygen first and then ran all the tests.
Interesting.
And then basically said, you know, the oxygen count is good, there's no treatment for this type of poisoning.
What poisoning did they say you
They didn't
had?
say, they can't say that you had anything, because there's no way to test it. There's no way to test it, so they can't, basically, they said there's no treatment for this type of thing, and they can't test for it either. So I left saying, telling me to go get eye drops. That's one of the other things, is there's crud, feeling like there's crud in my eye still today. This eye mostly like there's a conjunctivitis in there. And then the next day, I went to my doctor's because I was sitting over at the Black Rock there and having a breakfast and just starting to, I went into a sweat. Now, all the times that I went to the doctor each time, the 3 times, I had a low-grade fever. And usually my temperature is lower than normal, most people. So I had a low-grade fever for normal people. Went to the doctor this time and they said there's basically nothing they could do. They don't have any, they were gonna test me for the flu to just make sure of that, but they didn't have any flu devices on hand. The first doctor I went to on a note did test for strep just to make sure to rule that out, no strep. So that's my story. I still have the conjunctivitis in my eye and had a heat sweat today and felt the fever again.
I'd just like to add something. It's been proposed and done in the past. If you soak a towel in sodium bicarbonate, baking soda, that it may abate it some. I'd like to see some data on that, but I know that bases do break down H2S. So that might help. Of course, it's not a real good solution, obviously, but if there's nothing else, it might be worth trying.
I mean, put that at your
I'll
door,
mention one other thing.
over your
In
nose.
the mouth.
You make a
Oh, you
solution
do a
and
treatment.
you breathe through a towel with that wet.
I'll mention one other thing just to kind of back up. When she was trying to wake me up, I guess she checked on me a couple of times a night, and one of the times she thought I looked dead because my eyes were puffy and red. And just sleeping and not so hard, I guess. And then some of the days I've had a very splotchy face.
I just talked to
I
Civil
guess I have it right
Defense.
now, I don't know.
I just talked to Civil Defense. They're gonna set up some kind of emergency medical center out here tomorrow. So everybody can go to the doctor there and we can kind of get all that information in one place. If anybody that wants to. So as soon as I get that information, I'll send it out.
I just wanted to say, because we live on Hilo. I don't know if you're in here when I was telling my husband, but he slept today until 1. That's totally not like him. He's been having the sweats. He had goopy eyes that I took his picture because I was like, never happens to him. Thick green goop. You know, and I just remembered all the stories from 2 years ago, and I'm watching it happen in my house. And I'm watching everything unfold like we've been so afraid about. So anyway, I just want to say it was the same symptoms. He didn't crash out like that, but he's been very sleepy since. My kids are okay. They were in the house though, we never let them out, and it was my husband and I that went on the lanai.
We got Dr. Ninu and then Gail.
Hey, I'm a medical doctor. My name is Nina Quirk.
Welcome.
Thank you.
I'm Tom Travis.
Hey, how you doing? I kind of specialize in mitochondrial function. Hydrogen sulfide is a mitochondrial toxin. It's very similar to cyanide, which everybody's heard about. I'm sorry, if you need me to talk about it. Hydrogen sulfide is very similar to cyanide as a poison. It's a mitochondrial poison. Now, there's a couple different things that happen when you're exposed to a gas. One is your skin and your eyes and your lungs, everything that's directly exposed to the gas gets irritated, which could give you conjunctivitis or splotchy skin. And then the other thing that happens is your brain is affected because you breathe it in, and the olfactory nerve goes directly into the brain. There's no blood-brain barrier there. And hydrogen sulfide is very much a brain poison and a nerve poison. So to be getting numbness, tingling are very typical symptoms of that, as well as being extremely sleepy.
Would you give Daryl civil defense, head of civil defense, to call and talk to him about this emergency center tomorrow?
Right, I will, you just gotta give me the number.
I will.
But
I'll
there's
give
a
you the
couple more important things to say. So being sleepy is a neurologic symptom, being numb and tingling is a neurologic symptom. Not being able to think straight or get your words out exactly clearly, those are all neurologic symptoms. In a really high dose, of course, just like cyanide, hydrogen sulfide kills you rapidly. In lower doses, it causes brain damage, which may or may not be reversible. The mitochondrial poisoning aspect of it affects your entire body because there's mitochondria in every cell of your body except your red blood cells. So the doctors that you saw gave you misinformation because most doctors don't even know how hydrogen sulfide works, and they certainly don't know how to test for the poisoning. You need to test mitochondrial function. It's a urine test, believe it or not, and they can also check your lactate level in your blood. And they should have sent urinary organic acids immediately as soon as you were exposed and symptomatic. They should have also sent your blood lactate levels. I'm sure those are not the tests that they got in the ER because I know the standard test that they would send. And so they didn't test what they needed to test, which is mitochondrial function. In addition, there are treatments, and the treatments vary depending not only on the symptoms, but on which part of the mitochondria is affected. And the tests can show you that. Now, if people were to get tested tomorrow, like if civil defense or someone is willing to pay for this, or if people are insured, and anyone who's insured, their insurance should cover it because you've been exposed. But if you're not insured and you're not covered, I would hope that...
No, don't worry about that. We'll get that taken care of.
Anyway, so these tests could be done tomorrow. The urine ones have to be first morning urine, and you should be not exactly dehydrated, but
Can you
you
talk
should not...
louder? I'm sorry, it's just hard over the rain.
The rain is, yeah.
The urine tests
wanna
have to be
stand
your
up?
first morning urine. Okay, so, because that's the point when your organic acids are most concentrated. And you shouldn't drink, if you're gonna do this tomorrow morning, assuming that they will do this, whatever day you do it, you shouldn't drink much fluid 8 hours before you go to bed. And then you collect your first morning urine when you're just a little dehydrated because you haven't been putting much fluid in. And that concentrates the urinary organic acids and allows you to see the levels and the ratio is much better. Certain of those acids will be way out of whack with your mitochondrial malfunction. And lactate is something that goes up in your blood when your mitochondria don't function well. So there's definitely tests. I don't know whether a week after an exposure, if you're still symptomatic, you probably still would have abnormalities. But if urine is collected a week after the event and you see abnormalities, it can be assumed that right up at the exposure, that the levels were much, much higher. Recovering from mitochondrial insults takes time for some people, but there are things that can be done to make it better. And I can't really just say, oh sure, I'll see anybody anytime, but maybe I can work out a way to have people come and visit me where I work, and I may have, that's a chef. But you could have access to my unique knowledge, which you've got your test results.
Can I ask a question? Since we're still having to work with people saying that there's continuous venting, what would you suggest that everybody smells and how they can protect themselves? Like you were saying, put wet towel, baby soda. Would you suggest that or not?
I actually don't know the answer as to whether or not making your body more alkaline would protect you, but it's probably not a bad idea. It's because it's mitochondria.